This is an NFC module based on the PN532 chip. It uses the same technology found on the electronic door locks and the tap-to-pay technology found on your phone. Recently, I was looking for tutorials on how to use this module, but most of the content that I found relied heavily on ready-made libraries without really explaining how the module actually works. So in this video, I'm going to explain step by step how the module actually works. So basically, NFC stands for Near Field Communication, and it works by sending data through traces placed in such a way that they work as an antenna. The receiver, also known as NFC tags, also have traces that works as an antenna to receive the data sent by the transmitter. Inside the receiver, we also find a chip that stores the data that identify the receiver. We call that data UID, Unique Identifier. The NFC tag don't need any batteries or anything to power the communication. All the power is received by the signal sent by the transmitter, and it is used to power the IC that stores the data that identifies the receiver. It is also possible to copy the UID from one tag to another, so it behaves the same. The specific module that we are working with has three types of communication: SPI, I2, and HSU. The most capable and fastest communication that we can use is the SPI, so I'll be explaining how the module works using SPI communication. I highly recommend you to have a basic understanding of how the SPI works, so it will be easier to understand how this module works. Basically, the SPI has 4 pins: a clock, a data output, a data input, and a chip select pin. The chip select, it's used to select the device that we are using the communication, so we can have multiple devices connected with the same SPI peripheral. The data output and the data input is self-explanatory, and the clock is the signal that we use to synchronize the communication. So basically, to communicate via SPI, we need to select the device by setting the chip select to 0 on the device that we want to communicate and 1 to all the others. That way, we can communicate either by sending message with the data output or receiving message by the data input pin. The synchronization is also done via the clock signal, so we can have very fast communication. To guarantee the communication, we need to set the frequency of the SPI at 1.2 MHz. We also need to set the clock mode to 0. That means that the data is read on the rising edge of the clock signal. Another very important thing that we need to set on the SPI communication is that the data is sent via LSB. That means least significant bit first. Also, the SPI communication has the preamble and postamble. This is basically the data that we use to identify when the communication starts and the communication ends. In our case, the preamble and postamble are actually 0. Also, in the board, there's 2 switches, and they are used to select the communication that we're going to use. Since we are using SPI communication, we need to set the bottom one to 1 and leave the first one with 0. To communicate with the module, we need to choose a microcontroller. In my case, I'll be using the ESP32, but the idea is that you can use any microcontroller that uses SPI communication. So here we have the connections, and basically is the SPI communication, and we also have one more pin, that is the interruption pin. We can use the module in 2 modes. One mode is called pulling, that we need to keep checking if there's any tag close to the sensor, or we can use the interruption pin. That's basically a signal that identifies when a tag is close to the sensor. Most of the time, the interruption is better than the pulling because we can free some processing time from the microcontroller instead of always checking if the tag is detected. That's the hardware and connection part that you need to understand. Before we go to the logic explanation of the module, I want to show you something very cool. That's the NotebookLM AI. Maybe you already know about that, but basically it's something that you can upload your datasheet and application notes, and every information that you need to know about the thing that you want to build or understand is basically referenced by the AI, so any questions that you ask will probably be right, different from the ChatGPT or any other AI that always get things wrong. You can upload the datasheet and ask any questions. I use this a lot, so maybe that's useful for you. So that's something that you can use to ask questions about this module, this specific module that we're working with. So if you have any questions, you can do that. And basically that's it. So now I'll be explaining the logic behind the module. To better understand how the module works, I made a very basic example code for the ESP32. If you want, you can download it in the link below. The example works by toggling an LED when an authorized tag is detected, and also printing the UID on the serial terminal. If a non-authorized tag is detected, the LED stays the same and the UID is also printed on the terminal. The code has three main files: the application in main.c, the driver in PN532.c, and the SPI driver in SPI.c. It is highly recommended to separate your code into different files for specific functionalities, especially in bigger projects, to keep everything more organized and easier to understand. To start the module, the first thing needed is the initialization procedure. Here we configure the interruption and any microcontroller related setup that is required. After setting up the microcontroller, we also need to set the SPI chip select pin to low for about 10 milliseconds, so the module understands that the SPI communication is about to start. Without setting the chip select pin to low, the communication will not work. To send or to receive any message, we need to follow a packet frame in a specific order of bytes. That means that the message will always have the information specified on the packet frame that you're seeing. Every time a message is sent or received, it needs to follow this frame. If you need more information about the packet frame, you can refer to the datasheet for more details, and also in the code example there's a function called write full command frame that builds the frame following the specification. After sending a message, it is necessary to wait for a response. This is done by waiting for an interrupt to occur, and some messages also have an ACK response. ACK stands for acknowledgement, meaning that the message is sent as soon as it arrives, indicating that the command was received and understood. The actual response message will come after the ACK message, so it is necessary to wait for both the ACK response and the final response message. To read a response, we just need to wait for interruption signal to occur and read the SPI message expecting the same frame format. So this was all about the module configuration and communication requirements. Now for the application level, we can start by identifying a tag. To do that, we need to arm the tag detection. This will trigger an interruption whenever a tag is detected. Once that happens, we can read the response message that contains the tag's UID and compare it with an authorized UID and update the LED state accordingly. If you don't know your tag UID, you can just print on the serial terminal and compare that value with the UID response. At this point, you could easily adapt the logic to do something else, like controlling a relay, or a door lock, or any other device. To arm the detection, we need to send the following bytes, remembering to follow the packet frame. So that was everything that you need to know to use the PN532 module. And if you liked the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like, and see you in the next video.